Greetings, Universus Players, and welcome back to another video. My name is Willie T, and today I'm going to be bringing you another deck profile, this time with Hawks, the number 2 pro hero on the good symbol. I'm really excited to bring this to you guys because this is a unique take on a character who pretty much plays a pretty insular kit. I wanted to add in a couple of pieces that I think are really cool for him and do some things that only Hawks can do in some ways. Definitely bringing something more to the table than just the usual focused attack, blood moon rending, the usual stuff. I wanted to bring something unique. So that's what I brought for you guys today. I'll go ahead and get into the card by card here in just a moment. Well, let's go ahead and start with the man himself. Hawks, the number 2 pro hero. Hawks has the pro hero and villain tags. He has the evil, good, and order symbols and is a 6 hand size, 27 health character. Hawks has a few abilities on him. His static is at the start of your combat phase, add up to 2 copies of Hawk's Feather from your discard pile to your hand. He additionally has an enhance. Once per turn, change this attack's zone to high. You may switch its speed and damage. And he has a response. Once per enhanced step, after an attack's speed is modified, it gets +1 or -1 speed. Hawks is excellent at speed control, and nothing really brings that to the table quite like his own kit, but also when it's supplemented with several other pieces from existing kits that we have had available to us for quite some time. Hawks is a really strong defensive character. His damage output has to be measured, however, because once you commit this guy, he might be a bit toast. But let's go ahead and get into things proper with the attack lineup. Let's go ahead and start with 4 copies of the obvious Hawk's Feather. Hawk's Feather is a very necessary card for this deck in order to function. It is a 1 difficulty, 1 mid for 1 damage with a 2+ mid block. It has a static ability. If this card is removed by your rival's effect, add it to the bottom of your deck instead, giving it some longevity against things like villains defeated or other things that remove cards. The only thing that really is going to keep these out of your grasp is the speed at which you run through your deck and cycling. So keep that in mind as we go forward. You need these available in order to really take advantage of what Hawks brings to the table. Additionally, it has 2 enhances. The first is a hand enhance. Add this card to your card pool as cost. This attack gets +2 or -3 speed. This is really nice to be able to just mess with your rival's speed or to enhance your own in order to really bring some damage to the front. Additionally, its Hawks enhance is that this attack gets +2 damage, meaning that we just make this a 3 damage move in our character. Very nice to have available to us, but it's kind of a necessary evil. This is a deck building tax on us. These are seldom real attacks. They are just something that you throw out and your rival has to either take it or deal with it in some way. And it poses a unique question that isn't often asked in Universes, and that's just, are you willing to take 3 and move on? So we'll see how that kind of plays out over the course of things. This card's very solid in our character. It loses a lot of text elsewhere, but I definitely think it's obviously necessary to the deck, but it definitely brings a lot more to the table than it really reads on face. Next, I'm going to be bringing out something a little unexpected, more of a partially a nod to the anime, but also this is just a good card, and that is 3 copies of Double Trouble. Double Trouble has the Ally, Echo, and Stun 1 keywords. It is a 4 difficulty, 2 mid for 5. It has the enhance to discard a card and draw a card, and we don't care about the twice enhance. We're not twice. This card's really nice to have available to us because we're able to take advantage of that Echo really well. And discarding a card to draw a card is really good when we get stuck on too many feathers. We are artificially an 8-hander, so being able to discard a feather as cost and pick up something else potentially can go a long way into turboing out our aggression. It's a bit slow, but we have plenty of ways to buff that up. We can put Hawk's Feathers in order to buff up the speed. We have other ways that we can do that, but I think this card is underrated for this character, and I think we can see a lot of ways to really make this shine a little bit later in the deck. To follow that up, we're going back to Hawks' kit, and we're going to be bringing 3 copies of Feather Rush. Feather Rush is a 3 high for 5 on a 4 difficulty move. It has static text. If you have exactly 4 other cards in your card pool, this card ignores progressive difficulty, and it has an enhance to draw a card as long as you have a copy of Hawk's Feather in your card pool. Really easy to make that happen, really easy to get around that progressive difficulty with this. And on top of that, it does have the EX2 keyword, which is very, very good in our character. Being able to use that and get an additional speed without having to use any Hawk's Feathers from our hands or commit any pieces from our board can be really beneficial to us. So I think this card is a sleeper hit in this deck. Very, very good way to end off a string. Following that, we have 3 copies of Feather Sword Slash. This is a 4 difficulty, 4 low for 4. It has Enhance, Commit, 1 Foundation, search your deck for or discard pile for a copy of Hawk's Feathers and add Hawk's Feather and add it to your hand. Enhance, discard a card. This attack gets +3 damage. And it has a Deadlock Enhance just in case you need it to add a card with a difficulty of 3 or less from your card pool to your hand. There's a lot of cards in this deck that are really beneficial for that, and it's very, very cool to make that happen over the course of a turn. This is also a 7 damage move on a low zone, which our character makes things a high attack, which generally is going to skew what our rival is trying to do in picking up high blocks and keeping a lot of those. So being able to punish them with a relatively high damage low attack is going to be beneficial for you in the long term. I think Feather Sword Slash is going to be really good, and I think that that's going to be beneficial for us long term. Let's move on to one of the weird choices that I've made, but I think it's really beneficial in combination with Double Trouble, and that is 3 copies of Phantom Threat. We thought only Mirio could use this card. Well, we have a zone change on our face, so we might as well try to make something happen with this. Being able to open with a Phantom Threat, put it into our momentum, and then follow up with Double Trouble is a great way to really get off to the races on the damage. It also happens to have Powerful 3, which really can just help you close out a game if you really need to. The additional parts of this card are, if it receives a damage bonus, it gets +1 speed. We're really not gonna focus on that response. There's really not an easy way to make that happen in this deck, so we're generally not gonna be fussed about it. We're gonna just kind of take this as momentum and move on with our lives, really making something happen with those Double Troubles and really extend our strings. Really cool card in this deck. I like the way it plays. I want to know how you guys feel about it once we actually get to that point. Finally, to round off the attack lineup, we have 3 copies of Feather Sword Slash. Hawks' UR, very obvious choice for this deck. It's a 5 difficulty, 4 high for 6, with a card pool enhance to give your attack +1 speed. Very, very powerful in this character. And you have the enhance to make your Hawk's Feather not count toward progressive difficulty for this turn, which really helps you create those wide strings and facilitate the attack package that we have here. Really, really strong card. It also has Powerful 2, which is not to be slept on in this deck. You are going to occasionally get some momentum, and sometimes taking a feather when you have some available as a momentum will be beneficial for you. You don't need all 4 available to you at all times. So keep that in mind when you're playing your Hawks deck and seeing what you can push out onto your rival. I'm going to round off with a couple of things that are non-foundations before I get into those. One thing that I do like to play in this deck is 1 copy of Pro Hero Rankings. This definitely helps you get your feathers back in if you do have to cycle, but it also is a good way to get additional damage. This card can commit, reveal your hand, show off how many foundations you have, and give your attack that much damage. Really, really powerful. Also has Pro Hero Breaker 1, which can incidentally be useful. And it's also available to us to pick up off of another card in our blue card lineup, which we'll get to here right now. We're going to start off, though, with 2 copies of Airy Smiles. Being able to pick this up with the next card on our list is very, very good. Being able to just use effectively learning the standards from your hand is very potent in the current aggro-centric format. This card does work. It is a heck of a surprise for your rival, and it's something that they have to just figure out a way around. Additionally, the fact that it has a high block means that it synergizes with our character, being able to turn something into a high attack, block it with Airy Smiles, and then force our rival to play a non-attack card as their next form goes a long way to really solving some of the defensive issues that you may run into. It can really save your bacon. Following up, 3 copies of Hawks' namesake, Fierce Wings. This card is gnarly. Being able to pick up any card with difficulty of 3 or less from your discard pile is incredibly useful, especially with Airy Smiles. Being able to just grab an Airy Smiles, flash it at your rival, and go, hey, your turn's about to be over, bud. Really, really powerful defensive tool. Additionally, you can also just pick up your copy of Pro Hero Rankings so you can build it later on in the turn. It's a really good way to force some stability into this deck, and it's a great card to just get whatever you need. Additionally, its hand response is not to be underestimated. From the hand, you can remove it after one of your foundations is committed or destroyed due to a rival effect, and you get to build one non-unique foundation from your discard pile. This can go a long way for you in getting the exact right piece for you to play. It also allows you to play really fast and loose with your sideboard. It can be full of really cool 1, 2, 3 diff tech foundations all at one copy because you know you can grab it off of your Fierce Wings. Very, very cool card. I love to play around with this one, and I don't get to use it enough. I'm very, very pleased with how it's functioned in this deck. But that takes care of all of the non-foundations. Let's go ahead and see what our deck is truly built on. Following up with our foundations, we're going to go ahead and get straight into some really cool ones. We're going to start with 3 copies of Nice Try. Nice Try, you know it, you love it. It allows you to really aggress very heavily and still not be punished due to its response to ready itself at the start of your rival's combat phase. Additionally, committing it for -2 speed to your rival's attack, and then also using Hawks' response in order to get an additional -1. This card is very, very powerful in this character. You're able to really get a lot more mileage out of it than a lot of other characters are able to do. Really, really strong card. Love being able to play this in this deck. Following up, I have 4 copies of New Training Method. This is definitely a big staple of the good symbol. The good symbol generally tends to want to build wide. It also synergizes really well with our Nice Tries, being able to build those down. Additionally, there's a card later on that allows us to really weaponize this even further during our rival's turn, because we're going to be able to not only draw a lot of cards, but build a lot of foundations, and making things a high attack in order for us to block with our 2+ high block is really, really strong. I'm very excited to play this every time that I do because it just feels very good. It also allows us to play a lot more tech pieces should we so desire in our sideboard, because we are able to respond, flip, commit this in order to grab any sort of foundation that we check that we really want to have available to us. It allows us to get a degree of consistency that we can't otherwise get out of most of our builds. Next, to follow up, we have 3 copies of Specialist of Sound. Specialist of Sound is another one of those cards that really helps keep you alive. Respond for -3 speed is really, really powerful, and being able to make that even more is really, really nice. The one thing to keep in mind is that this does not trigger with Hawks' response, because his is during the enhanced step. This is a response when the attack is played. So you're not going to be able to use this for -4 speed. You're only able to use this for -3. The rest of it's where the Nice Tries come in. So keep that in mind when you are playing this card. It's not quite as strong. Moving on, we have 4 copies of Passing the Torch. Surprising no one, a staple of the good symbol is Passing the Torch. being able to draw cards and be able to get as many things as you need to either go aggressive or be defensive is incredibly potent. This is one of the best cards in the deck, and it's definitely one of the things that if I get stunned by my rival and I have Fierce Wings in my hand, I am immediately going to consider grabbing and passing the torch in order to just blunt that assault. Next in line, we have 3 copies of Relaxed Demeanor. Relaxed Demeanor is really beneficial for us just so that we can go grab our Hawk's Feathers and put them into our discard pile. This card goes a long way to getting us consistently off the ground early, but later on it does lose a bit of its luster. So it is something that I don't want to max out at 4 copies on, because once I get to that mid-game point, I'm going to have 2 of my feathers unless I have been exceptionally unlucky. And I don't count on being exceptionally unlucky. So that's kind of the extent of this card. It really is just there to get your feathers. Following up, we have 3 copies of Feather Control. Feather Control is primarily going to be used so that we can recycle our feathers. You can enhance, remove, add 1 non-action card with a printed difficulty of 1 from your card pool to your hand. This is tailor-made for Hawk's Feathers. Very, very powerful. It also has a Deadlock Enhance. Your attack with printed difficulty of 3 or less gets +1 speed and +1 damage. It is not incredible, but it is very useful, and it does give a little bit of extra threat to those Hawk's Feathers and make them a little bit more of a concern for your rival. When your feathers are 3 damage, they're pretty okay. When they're 4, 5, 6 damage, it starts to get a little out of hand. So definitely something that you want to keep in mind. Don't get too eager pulling the trigger on grabbing them back out of your card pool. Sometimes you want that deadlock available. One of my pet inclusions in this deck is 3 copies of Adorable Telepath. I really like this card in characters like Hawks, where you have some degree over the zones that your rival is going to be playing. Turning something into a high, after not keeping a bunch of high blocks, being able to bounce this from your stage to your hand, giving your rival's attack -1 speed from itself, -1 speed from Hawks, and then blocking with it is a really nice feeling for you. It makes you feel very secure in your ability to build further out and build a wide stage that your rival just can't crack. You kind of need a wide stage with this deck in order to really facilitate the defense that you need in order to eventually sculpt to the offense that closes out games. And this card helps with that. But it also helps primarily in conjunction with 4 copies of the Manly Passionate Guy. I told you we'd circle back around to new training method, and this card is why. Being able to turn your rival's attack into a high and then block with either a new training method or an Adorable Telepath, and then build it down with your Manly Passionate Guy is a huge benefit to you defensively, because you are going to be able to not only rebuild during your rival's turn, but you're also going to be able to play relatively perfect defense. This card is incredible in this deck. I love playing these 3 cards in combination. It makes an incredible defensive wall that a lot of attacks that are a lot of players that are reliant on high zone bombs find it difficult to crack through, and this card really helps with that. Rounding out the foundations, we have our zeros. We're gonna start with 4 copies of Keeping Ares Safe. This is a card that really punishes our rival for stunning us, keeps our resources available, and makes sure that we're able to blunt that assault. Additionally, we have 4 copies of It Can't Be Fixed, which fulfills a similar role. Anytime we get stunned, our rival is getting giga punished, because we're going to be able to do something like commit a Keeping Ares Safe, ready it back up, flip it, It Can't Be Fixed, build a card off the top of our deck, then we're going to use Fierce Wings to grab a card out of our discard pile and build that too. It's just not a good time stunning this deck, and I really don't recommend it if you are on the receiving end of someone who borrows this brew. Really, really cool. I really like how this plays. I like how it goes defensively and shuts off certain options for your rival, But let's go ahead and see how that defense pans out with a quick block zone check. And there you have it, Universus Players. Here is my Hawks deck laid out by block zone. We have 22 highs, 22 mids, and 16 lows. Really kind of skewed toward the high and mid. We're able to get away with fewer lows due to our ability to switch things to a high. Really allows us to play a bit greedier with the block zones, but it's still a solid spread that allows us to play into pretty much anybody unfazed by what they've got going on. I hope you enjoyed the deck. Like and subscribe for more. Tell me what you thought of the deck in the comments below. And until next time, just watch me.